Hi, and welcome to the Caterpillar Cross Stitch YouTube channel. My name's Ford from Son of a Stitch, and this week I'm going to teach you how to finish the edges of your fabric so that it doesn't come unraveled while you're working on your project without the use of any specialized tools or equipment, just the things that you would already have with you in your stitching bag. Here at Caterpillar Cross Stitch, we are all about cross stitch, and we upload helpful and, we like to think, entertaining videos about it every single week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so that you'll get a notification when we post a new video, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you give it a like and leave me a comment down below so I know I should make more content like it. Likewise, if you have a question you'd like me to answer or a topic you'd like me to address on the channel, leave that in the comments as well, and I'll add it to my list of future video ideas. And while you're clicking on things and I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping, make sure that you join the Caterpillar Cross Stitch VIP Stitch Club. When you join, you'll get 10% off your first order, you'll get a free PDF ebook with 8 cross-stitch patterns in it, and you'll get a digital download of our top 10 cross-stitching tips. So hit the link in the description to join the VIP Stitch Club and get all of those great perks. Now, I've always found it interesting that virtually every culture has some sort of a major holiday or festival that falls right around the winter solstice. Something about the long, dark winter nights makes us want to get together with those that we care most about, usually with some fire or some lights in order to encourage the spring to return. This year was no different for me, and I went on a couple of different trips in order to be with family and friends. And I found myself packing last minute because, well, let's face it, because of who I am as a person. So that meant I was throwing together a project super late, the night before I had to leave, and I didn't have time to pull out my sewing machine and finish the edges of my project fabric the way I normally would. What I typically do is use my overlock foot and an overlock stitch or a zigzag stitch in order to secure the edges of the fabric so that it doesn't come unraveled. In both of these cases, I was not prepared, and so I needed to be able to finish the edges of the fabric without any specialized tools or equipment, with just the things I was already carrying with me. And it occurred to me that maybe that would be knowledge that would help you too. So let me show you a couple of different methods. Now, those of you who follow the channel probably recognize this piece of fabric. I've used it for quite a few of my demos. It's sort of become a mascot. I call it Scrappy. You can see that a couple of the edges still have the overlocking stitch that I did with my sewing machine, but this piece of fabric was cut off of a larger piece of fabric, and therefore some of the edges are unfinished. So let's show you the stitch that I used to finish the edges. The stitch that I use is just called a blanket stitch. It's very easy. To start with, I'm going to thread my needle. And then on the far end of my thread, I'm going to tie a big knot. I'll just do that by wrapping the tail around the loop a few extra times. It's not important how or what kind of knot you use. This is just going to be to start my thread. Now, the stitching that we do along the edge is not going to be visible when we're finished, and it's never going to be structural. It just holds the fabric from fraying, so it doesn't matter if any of the things that we do here are pretty. So then all we're going to do is we're going to decide the point we're going to start at and bring the needle up through the fabric about a 1/4 inch or somewhere around 3 squares from the edge on 14 count in. Guess that knot wasn't big enough. Let's go through between holes instead of through one of the stitching holes. There we go. Let's make sure this is in focus. Then for my first one, I'm going to go straight up over and come up again through right next to it so that I get this kind of loop. one stitch that goes straight out to the edge of the fabric. Let's bring it into the middle here. So then I'm going to go a certain length along. It doesn't matter how long. For aesthetic reasons, it's nice if this is a consistent distance, but it doesn't actually matter that much. It can be as sloppy as you want it to be. And I'm going to pull that most of the way through. And you can see this kind of makes like a loop here, right here. And I'm going to stick my needle through that loop before I pull it all the way tight. And the very first one, I'm going to get this little Z shape right here. But then for the rest of them, I'm going to just repeat that exact same motion. Come up through the fabric in the same direction as I did before. Make sure my needle passes through that loop and pull it tight. And what we're going to wind up with, as we keep pulling those, not too tight, you don't want to bunch up the fabric. As we keep doing stitches like that, is we're going to wind up with a stitch that goes straight out towards the edge of the fabric, and then a piece of floss that runs right along the edge of it. If you want to, you can go through beforehand and, whoops, wrong direction. You can go through beforehand and trim off all of your little fraying bits and flyaways. Personally, I usually just gather them up into my stitches. It brings it all together. The thing you don't want to do is pull those off, because you're just making the fraying worse there. So if you're going to remove all those little flyaways, grab your scissors and do it and cut them off. Don't just yank them away. Tempting though that may be. So just going to keep doing this all the way around the outside edge. You can see I'm not really measuring my stitches. They're slightly irregular in length. Once you kind of get used to the motion of it, it becomes very, very fast. It's a little difficult for me because I have to try to keep it in frame for you so you can see what I'm doing. It's a little hard for me to see out at arm's length right here like this. Now, sticking my head in your field of view. This is actually a trick that I learned in one of the online cross-stitching communities that I'm in, which is why I highly recommend being a member of online communities. In particular, I really like the Caterpillar cross-stitch community. You can find that in the Caterpillar cross-stitch Facebook group or in the comments of the Caterpillar cross-stitch Instagram posts. It's a huge community of people who are doing this for years, most of them longer than me, or at least many of them longer than me. It can be an extremely valuable resource for learning tips and tricks about the hobby. So basically, we just continue like that all the way around the project until we get to the end of the other unfinished one. Then you just tie it off, tuck your thread in. It doesn't need to be super strong, it doesn't need to be super tidy. All we're trying to do is keep it from fraying any worse while we're working on it. And then eventually that's going to get cut off to frame it anyway, so it doesn't need to be super pretty. And once you get to a corner, in order to round the corner, all you're going to want to do is do a stitch through the exact same spot in one direction, and then again in the other direction. And that will round the corner and keep it all tidied up for you. So I'm close enough to the corner here that I'm going to do that here. So I'll make that stitch here, and then I'll come around the corner here basically. And I'll just hang on to my little loop as it tightens down so that it goes around the corner there. And that will keep these bits from fraying any further. And then I'll just keep on in the exact same fashion. Now, as an alternative to the blanket stitch, you can also use the whip stitch that I showed you last time, which is so called because it's so fast. you just whip it through. So basically all you're going to do there is keep pushing your needle through the fabric in the exact same direction every time, but without looping it through the loop that creates. So this creates kind of a spiral all the way around the fabric. This is extra fast and easy, but I kind of like having the little bit of thread that runs around the outside. I feel like it helps keep it from fraying quite so much, and it just looks a little bit cuter without any extra effort, really. So that's the method that I use to finish the edges of my project fabric when I don't have a sewing machine available. I've heard of people using other methods like a little bit of fray stop or some masking tape, and fray stop would probably work okay, but I would not usually recommend masking tape. The adhesive on it is not acid-free and it will discolor your fabric over time. Since your project is a family heirloom, you don't want that. I want to thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For Caterpillar Cross Stitch, my name is Ford, and I'll see you next time.